Hi, folks. Now I've got an amazing guest tonight with me. I mean, you're like it's Richard Inman. He's a firebrand. You're like, I mean, anybody who's seen this man speak, I mean, you just have the crowds captivated, don't you, Richard? I mean, how do you describe yourself?
Wow. Well, I know how other people describe me, Liam, but we'll not go into that one, mate. How do I describe myself? Do you know? I mean, I suppose um, that's a really, really interesting question because there's so many different hats, isn't there, that you could wear. I suppose a political activist, um, certainly a speaker, a commentator. Um, yeah, and a human being. I don't know, Liam. What am I? I don't know, mate.
You're
It's a
probably
difficult one.
not used to talking about yourself. That's the thing
No,
about
I'm not. Do you know what? I never get nervous when I do podcasts.
it. Right.
Um, but like I said to you, when I came on and the wife said to me, what are you doing talking about yourself? Nobody wants to know about you.
That's the thing. People see, for people who don't know, I've known Richard because obviously with TR, we can't even mention his name. You know, Richard
Yeah,
is often doing a load of speeches on stage, and people are overwhelmed by this oratory that you do and all of that. But you know, we don't know anything about you, Richard. Really, I mean, we what we do know is that you were in the army and stuff.
yeah.
Tell us about your army background.
Yeah, so I suppose if you start at the beginning, because the beginning is kind of relevant to what we do and why we do it. So I was brought up in Middlesbrough, northeastern town, just up in the cold Badlands of the northeast of England, old industrial town. Quite a hard town. It was a tough enough place to grow up in the 70s and 80s, but good. I mean, I enjoyed my time in Middlesbrough, and one of the interesting things that happened was when I went to secondary school, um, I had quite a few mates in the school that were from a Pakistani background. And this was sort of 81, 82. And they were talking about their uncles and their cousins and their older brothers that were out in Afghanistan fighting against the Russians. And back then, of course, during the Cold War, the Russians were the sort of major enemy. So this is in the 80s. So these are kids that are they've probably been born in Middlesbrough. They've migrated very, very young, and they're part of that Pakistani community. But back then, there was uncles and cousins and brothers going and doing jihad against the Russians in the 80s. Now that really interested me. And another thing about the Pakistani community, one thing about England in the 70s and 80s, it was a pretty godless place. Nobody went to church. Nobody was interested in God. Nobody's interested in religion. And these guys were very, very pious, very religious people, right? And that kind of, I didn't become a Muslim, obviously, but that kind of just interested me. That and the community, the Pakistani community, was very, very different. Now, as we grew up and we got older, and you sort of start flexing your muscles, that different sort of clans and gangs, grow up in schools and in local areas. Then there started to be a lot of friction between the Pakistani lads and really not really black lads or even Indian lads. It was Pakistanis kind of against everyone else. And this was sort of 80, 83, 84. And there was quite a lot of violence in the school between the two different groups, even to the stage that we had the special patrol group of the police patrolling my school
Oh,
in
really?
in 1984. It all kicked off. Obviously we were on one side, they were on another, and I've got to stress this: it wasn't a race thing, right? And I didn't know anything about the religion at the time, and basically we ended up having sort of inter gang violence with the Pakistanis and kind of everybody else. It went on probably for about 6 months, to the extent that when I was going into Middlesbrough on a Saturday afternoon, because I got involved in this because I was sort of a young boisterous kid, that I'd be getting jumped by 3 or 4 Pakistani lads. So if I went into town, I had to go into town with other lads with me to kind of you know just in case it kicked off. So that really woke me up to the fact that there was a divide there. There was, because, like, all the lads from the West Indies or India, or there's quite a few Vietnamese kids in our school because it was the time of the Vietnamese boat people. Everybody else kind of mucked in, but there was this kind of differential there, right? So Anyway, cut a long story short, I grew up, went through a few scrapes as you do as a young lad,
Were you
and
like
I
a tough lad? Were you a tough teenager?
probably thought I was, Liam. I probably we all think we are. I mean, look, I was 6'2" and built pretty much like I'm built now. So I'd have attracted quite a lot of, sort of the wrong sort of attention of people that wanted to scrap, and I could do a bit, but like I was, like anything. I mean, you win some, you lose some, and you find out after not too long that you're not as tough as you think you are. But yeah, I think there was a period
Sorry
between
to
being about
interrupt.
four.
Did you
Say
get into
again?
dangerous situations when you were there? I mean, did you actually get attacked and stuff like that?
Oh, in Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and that wasn't with the Pakistani thing that was going on. Yes, that went on, and there was attacks from there, but that was a sort of 6 month period in 1984. But it was in Middlesbrough. There was a lot of interstate. There'd be different housing estates, and housing estates would kind of come against each other. I remember one instance. I was literally just walking to a pub. I was probably about 16, so I shouldn't have got anywhere near a pub. But I was walking to the pub with two young lads, and this car pulled up, right? And these lads jump out, and I look round. The two lads that were with me, they ran off. Right? So I'm doing my best to fend off, four men that are try to jump all over me, and I got a bit of a slap, and I gave him a bit back. Anyway, I walked into the pub, and all the lads I knocked about with were all a bit older than me, and they were kind of a lot of them were sort of, on the fringes of, sort of, I don't know, football stuff and just that sort. It was just that sort of era where there was a lot of lads that really fancied themselves. So I walked in the pub, told the lads what had happened, and we knew who it was that had done it because these lads have been going around, driving around, jumping out and beating young lads up. And lo and behold, it was like, do you remember the film American Werewolf in London?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the strangers walk into the pub, and
Yes.
the whole. So I'm just telling the lads what's happened, right? And these four lads walk into the pub. So needless to say, after closing time, that descended into a bit of mayhem, and it all got a bit out of hand. And so anyway, and this is kind of relevant to I'd already applied to go in the army, and
Why?
these
Why?
guys,
Why did you apply?
pardon?
Why did you apply to join the army?
Oh, I just wanted to be in the military. It was something I always wanted. I loved, when I saw the Falklands War in 1982. I looked at that and I went, do you know what? That's something that I want to do. I want to go and go and do what those guys did. And even things like Northern Ireland. I used to watch the stuff on Northern Ireland. A lot of people were scared of Northern Ireland, scared of the IRA and all this sort of stuff. I thought that was like really good fun. I want to go and do that. I want to go and see what this is all about. Because it's just you have that thing when you're a young lad. You have that thing. You're full of. It's not even really aggression. You just want an adventure.
Mhm.
When you're young, all you want to do is have an adventure. And I think that's what a lot of kids are missing now. You want to, whether it's, joining the army or getting involved in a contact sport or doing boxing or some sort of, there's a lot of, obviously, when I was a kid, there was no real mixed martial arts. And like a lot of people do these mixed martial arts. And it's all about proving yourself. It's a rite of passage and being a man. You want to be a man, So when I left school, I worked on building sites for a couple of years before I went to the army. I was kind of, I didn't want to sit about
Mhm.
doing what I'm doing now, basically. I didn't want to be behind the desk, getting fat and pasty. So that's just what I was like when I was a kid. I was just boisterous, always in trouble, always messing about. But I don't think there wasn't any real viciousness. It was just
No.
kind of, just sort of mischief, right?
Well,
So,
it's a
so
tough town, Middlesbrough, isn't it? It's tough.
Oh, it was tough. It was tough. It was tough. There was a very famous lad from Middlesbrough called Lee Duffy, and he got stabbed by a guy. I think the guy stabbed him. Well, he certainly got stabbed when he was out in Italy a few years ago. But the same lad that stabbed Lee Duffy, and Lee Duffy was like he was a bit of a bully, to be honest with you. By all accounts, he was a real hard lad, but he would have used it in the wrong sort of way. But he's a few years older than me. But the same lad that stabbed Lee Duffy to death pulled a knife out on me one night, and I was literally just walking up to. There was a little Chinese takeaway in a pub near where I lived, and I was walking between the pub and the Chinese takeaway, and he kind of sorted over and started, giving it a whole lot of verbal and stuff, and he pulls out this knife, and I thought, no, this guy will use it again. I'm getting offside. I wasn't going to try and be a hero, but yeah, but yeah. So there was a lot of that sort of stuff going on, and just some tough men in Middlesbrough, just some really, really, really tough men.
What was
And
so you went into the army and
yeah,
what is it like, the training that you have to go to?
yeah. I mean, I joined when I was 17. Yeah, 17 and a half, because I could have gone as a boy soldier at 16, but I'd kind of left it too late to apply, even though I was, all best intentions and all that sort of stuff. And I basically joined at 17 and a half as an adult soldier. And basic training was tough then. I mean, they used to call it beasting. They beasted you from when you got there till when you passed out. And obviously, a lot of people kind of, I suppose, can't comprehend that culture shock and the discipline that you get now. And some of the stuff that they used to do to us when we were in basic training. I mean, they used to do this thing, and it was kind of like Space Invaders, right? So they'd have you all sort of in two rows, and you'd have to not move, and you'd have to like sort of do like a Space Invader, that sort of
Yeah.
like crowdy sort of move, right? So you'd be moving from side to side, and the corporals and the sergeants would be standing there with water bottles full of water, metal and plastic water bottles, and they'd be throwing the water bottles at people, right? And if you flinched, right, you got beasted and you had to. But if you didn't flinch, it'd hit you in the face and knock you flat in your ass. So just fun stuff like that. And you did things like log races where you had to run,
Mhm.
ridiculous distance carrying a sort of chopped in half telegraph pole, and stretcher races where you had these big concrete blocks on stretchers. So the infantry, I was doing training for the infantry, and I loved it. I absolutely loved basic training, and again, you were just doing something that you would never have done
Mhm.
in Civvy Street. I love weapons. I love shooting. We've gone down on the ranges and stuff. But it was hard. I mean, physically, it was extremely hard. And there's times when and all the kit that you had then was really old.
Yeah.
Like looked like not much better than I had in World War II, to be honest with you. It's like the webbing that we had was made in 1958. That's
Right.
and with the big SLRs, the big long barreled rifles. And yeah, it was really,
What's
really
the
cool.
comradeship like in that sort of?
It was great. It was great. I mean, it was interesting because in where I trained was it's probably gone now. It's called the King's Division. It was all the regiments from the north of England, and there were some lads from Northern Ireland there as well. But all the northern lads, you'd have the Queen's Lancashire Regiment, Duke Wellington's regiment that I was in, the Green Howards, which was actually the Middlesbrough regiment I was meant to be going into. They were kind of overmanned, so I ended up getting transferred to one from West Yorkshire. That's how I ended up with this slight sort of West Yorkshire twang. But so yeah, so we all trained together, and then obviously once you'd done your training, you went out to your battalion. I got to my battalion, and now this is where it got different, right? This is what a lot of people don't talk about and don't mention. But when I got to my battalion, so I was, what was that, 1986? So I did start training 95. Yeah, got to battalion 1986, and we were going out to Northern Ireland in the February '87, right? But when I got there, what shocked me was there was a real bullying culture
Mhm.
in the certainly in my regiment, and there was a lot of lads there that were throwing the weight about, and they didn't even have rank. They'd just been in longer than everybody else,
Mhm.
and they had their own little sort of cliques. And the first day I got to battalion, I got shit kicked out of me. This lad, he started on me, and I pushed him back, and then all his mates jumped in and kind of pinned me down on bed and just he really gave me a doing over. And that was a kind of rite of passage in a lot of infantry battalions in the '80s. And so I didn't like that. I thought that was, that's not camaraderie. That's just intimidation. And you join the mafia or something. You're meant to be joining, an infantry
But
regiment.
if
But
you
anyway,
pass the test, do they then
yeah.
treat you better?
Well, how I passed the test was, so this went on for a little while, and I kind of, back then I was the kind of guy that would take stuff and then I'd just blow and this guy was again, he was trying to sort of intimidate me and boss me about and all this sort of stuff. And we were at like a company social thing in a bar, in the mess, and it's not the mess, the naffy. And I went to the toilets, and he walked in after me and started, getting a bit leery. and I just knocked him out. And it was one of those. I hit him, right, Liam, and it was one of those punches where I just caught him on his nose, and his nose just exploded. And it was a white. It was like a white tiled toilet, right? And he was laid out on the floor, but it looked a lot worse than it was. So there's blood all over the walls, right?
Yeah.
And he's laid out in a mess. And I just walked out, went back, sat down, started drinking my beer again. One of his mates went into the toilet. Then the next thing, about six of them all run in the toilets, and they just come out and look at me and go, I don't think we're going to pick on this guy anymore.
Yeah. So you got a
So
reputation.
that was the bullying over. That was,
Yeah.
and honestly, it was just a lucky punch. It wasn't me being a tough guy. It was just a lucky punch. And like I
But
said,
am I right in thinking that you were part of a bomb disposal thing? Was that what you were?
no, that's complete. Do you know what? That's complete nonsense. What? That's Hope Not Hate. Um, wrote that book about Tommy, right?
Right.
And basically in that book, they that first of all they published. They said I was in some special forces unit in Northern Ireland. To be honest with you, like part of me was going, this actually makes me sound like James Bond. I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at, I don't know what I think Nick Knowles might have some sort of tendencies there because he was talking about this barrel chested, to me, this barrel chested former soldier that had all these, all these special skills. And I had to burst his bubble and tell him, listen, I wasn't in the special force. I don't know where you got that from. And also, you publishing that in a book has put my life in danger. So I'd appreciate it if you retract it pretty quickly. And I've never had any trouble from Hope Not Hate since.
Oh, actually, I saw online that the Guardian apologized to you.
They did, yeah. They had to. Because I went, like, listen, what they didn't realize was that if you're passing on information that's useful to terrorists, it's a criminal offence with a 14-year prison sentence. So it's not just like libel.
Yeah.
They were basically putting my life at risk, saying
Yeah.
stuff that wasn't true about me. And, and they didn't care. They didn't fact check it. They didn't come to me
No.
and ask me. They just published it. And Lowell's published it in his book. And like I say, I mean, I think they've realised that they were in grave error, and they haven't bothered doing that again. No, I was
So
I was
you
in an
weren't,
infant
you
record.
weren't like a bomb man. So what was your role when you were in
No,
Ireland?
my role
If
was
I
to
can
walk
ask.
around with a rifle and stop cars and talk to IRA suspects and just do what the infantry did for 30 years in Northern Ireland. And when I went there, I was 18, and it had a massive impact on how I saw the world.
Mhm.
Because even though I've been brought up in this rough town and there'd been a bit of just boisterous stuff as a kid, this was people getting killed every single day. I mean, not necessarily soldiers, but there was policemen getting shot. There was prison officers getting cars blown up and killed. There was loyalists and Republicans killing each other. There wasn't when we were there. There wasn't a massive amount of rioting, but there was occasional outbursts of of, of rioting that was a lot more serious than what you saw in August this year. So this was back when Northern Ireland was the hotspot. It wasn't as bad when I was there as it was in the 70s, but it was certainly a lot worse than it was in the 90s and the 2000s. We lost. Um, One guy was killed by the IRA. He was hit by a horizontal mortar and Land Rover, and he was killed instantly. I'm not going to go into more detail, but he was killed instantly. We had one of our guys got his leg blown off by an IED. In fact, there's actually a bit of a story, but not behind what happened to him, but just shows you the black sense of humor of squaddies. So his mother came to see him when he was in hospital. Obviously, he's got to have the leg amputated above the knee, and the lads had bought him a box of jelly babies, right? And his mother said, "You know what's going on." His mother said, "Oh, that's really kind of the boys getting you this box of jelly babies." She opened the box and nearly passed out because the lads had amputated a leg off every single one of the jelly babies.
Oh, that is funny. That is funny.
And that was the sort, that's the sort of stuff. And
Were you ever worried though? I mean, did you walk around each day every time you got to approach a car or something you think you could get shot, or how did you cope with all of
well,
that?
there was a constant tension there, and obviously, I was pretty clued up, even though I was just an infantry soldier. I wasn't anything special, but I had a good idea of how the troubles were working, at how it was going down, and what was happening, and I knew that there was a lot of stuff happening in the background
Mhm.
that was basically the sort of sneaky beakies, RUC Special Branch, MI5, 14 Int, All these groups were I knew about these groups because I was not because I was anything special, but just because I was well read and I wanted to know what I was going into. And I knew that these groups were operating, and I knew that there was a lot of operations were getting intercepted that we probably never even knew about. And there was a lot of people in those terrorist organizations that were working for the state. I mean, we're talking masses of people in those terrorist organizations that were working for the state, and that's another complete
Yeah.
different podcast because as I've got older and got to know a lot of people that were involved in this sort of secret war, I've just realised that my suspicions were correct. That a lot of it was a puppet show, and there was a lot of people being controlled and so on. But yes, there was quite a few incidents where literally either us being in the right place at the right time saved us, and even on the other side, IRA men with weapons that we saw that we couldn't engage because they were too far away to basically, if we'd have shot them, this is where I kind of laugh about the idea that British soldiers were just going there to kill everybody and brutalize people. We knew if we shot an IRA man, there was one incident in West Belfast, there was a guy who ran across a junction, just like a junction you'd have in Leeds or Bradford or London, ran across a junction with a G3 rifle, balaclava, and combat jacket on. And we'd literally just gone firm in a position. We didn't have a chance to engage him because it was just too quick. And if we had, and looking back at it now, if we had engaged him and shot him and killed him, which you could have done under the rules of yellow card, we'd probably be getting dragged through the courts now, because by the time we'd have got there, the rifle would have gone, the balaclava would have gone, and you'd have shot an innocent man that was just, in a combat jacket. That's kind of the way the game was played. I mean, I was very lucky. There was one incident in West Belfast. We were in an area called Lenadoon, and it was a very, very active, hard Republican area. And one of our call signs got fired at by a sniper, and we kind of were following up to try and cut off any getaway from the guy that had, I mean, it was sort of popular. The IRA were very good as well. I mean, they knew what they were doing and they knew how to do things and get away with it. You know what I mean? But so they shot at one of our call signs. We'd followed up onto a road called the Glen Road, and we were patrolling down the road, and I saw a broken window in a house on the Glen Road, right? And there was a woman. It was a sunny day. It was August. I think it was August '88. And nice summer's day, and there's this woman in the garden, and I said to her, I says, I know this sounds like a really stupid question, because I thought that was a firing point. That's where the shooting had come from. Yeah. I said to her, I says, is that where the shooting came from? And she says, no, son. She says, that window was broken last time a bomb went off here, right? And she kind of stared at me, right? And I was like, and just the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, right? So I just became sort of hyper vigilant and stopped. Now, if I'd have carried on walking, I would have been in big trouble, because literally as I stopped and started looking around the house and looking at the back of the house, a bomb exploded 10, 15 yards away, right? And there was a little gypsy camp there. It was dug into the side of the road. It's quite a big one. If I hadn't stopped and spoke to that woman, yes, that would have taken me. It would, without a doubt, I wouldn't be talking to you now. No. I would have been killed, because it was quite a big explosion, and I would have took the full force of the blast, because it was on the side of the road that I was actually on. So we're talking probably 10, 15 meters away from where I was standing talking to this woman. So that's literally the sort of margin.
How do you feel about that you could have died? Did you have any kind of sort of repercussions from those experiences?
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is the thing. I don't know. I mean, possibly. But I think at the time, what happened was, what they used to do then, back in the 80s, if something traumatic happened, it was right, get the F back on patrol, get back in, get a cup of tea, get an egg banjo, which is an egg sandwich, get back out on patrol, and crack on with it. You don't think about what's just happened. You get back out there and you do it. There was none of this counselling or PTSD. No, nothing like that. And the next day, so what used to happen when there was a bomb explosion, everybody got ringing in the ears, right, Liam? Because you got a claim if you had ringing in the ears. So everybody had ringing in the ears when there was a bomb explosion. So anyway, we're going up to the med centre the next day in a Land Rover, and an IRA man, one of the top IRA men, he pulls out the car in front of our Land Rover, and lo and behold, they open up on the Land Rover. So in 2 days, we've been bombed and shot at within 24 hours. You know what I mean? And that was as an experience. And I phoned my future wife and
Well, that's good.
and said to her, I said, because she's from Northern Ireland, I said, oh, I've just been blown up. She went, no, you haven't. I said, no, I have. She says, no, you haven't, because you're talking to me. You haven't been
Yeah,
blown up.
yeah, yeah.
Man up. Yeah.
Did you feel, I mean, now in retrospect, without getting too political, did you feel that it was a worthwhile thing to do when you were there?
Oh yes, absolutely. Because you see the thing about the British military, right? There was a lot of different players in the conflict, and the British military, without a shadow of a doubt, made a lot of mistakes. No doubt about it. Made a lot of mistakes, but what army doesn't make mistakes when you more or less parachuted into a civilian population in a part of the UK? I mean, the rules of engagement in Northern Ireland were so strict. I mean, I hear some of the stuff, some of the lads talk about what they did in Afghanistan, and I think, lads, see, if you did that in Northern Ireland, you'd have gone to prison,
Yeah.
or you'd still be getting chased through the courts now. I absolutely believe Northern Ireland was completely just cause. The IRA were an insidious, evil organisation. I mean, we can remember it in the 70s,
Yeah.
the bombings
Bombs
in
and
London, and even growing up as a kid, you were kind of nervous about, about where you went, and what have you. So, the UK's been dealing with terrorism for a long, long time, and there's kind
do
of nothing
people
new.
forget about that? Because I mean, I remember in my youth, in London, you were
Yeah,
walking past cars thinking, "Oh, a good bomb could
yeah,
go off" and stuff. And
totally, totally. And that's it. I mean, London got hit hard by
yeah,
the IRA.
yeah,
It got hit hard. I mean, I mean, I know it wasn't actually inland, but you had, the Guildford
yes,
bombs,
yeah,
Guildford pub bombers.
Birmingham,
You
yeah,
the Yeah, I think Aldershot got hit.
yeah,
Actually, when I left Northern Ireland and went to a place called Turnhill in Shropshire,
mhm,
which we took over from two para. They went, I think, well, yeah, one of the para regiments was going out to take over from us in Belfast, and we kind of swapped with them. And the day that we got to the camp,
mhm,
two IRA men, because this was before they had the big gates and everything around the camp. And this is how ridiculous it was back in the 80s.
mhm.
When you were doing guard duty in the 80s, you didn't have any bullets in your rifles in England.
That's useful.
Honestly, now I'm swearing you didn't have bullets. They used to put a penny in the magazine, right? And you put that on the weapon, and it looked like the weapon was loaded. So there was a magazine on it, but there's no bullets.
Right.
So these two paras saved probably 60 of my mates. I was in married quarters because I married my wife. So I was in married quarters, and I'm lying in bed, and it's about, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning. I heard this boom, this big explosion. I thought, so that's realistic. The Paras must be really going at it with the training here. That sounded really effective. You know what I mean? And my wife thought, well, she says, what's that? I says, oh, I says it's just obviously doing some sort of training thing.
Mhm.
And the next thing is a massive explosion, and my windows just shook.
Yeah, yeah.
So I got all the kit on and legged it into the camp. And what they'd done, the IRA unit had gone in and they planted two bombs, like they did in the Brighton bombing, two bombs in the baths
Oh,
in the accommodation blocks, right? And there was probably 120 men in those two accommodation blocks. So because we were just doing a takeover, so all the lads were coming back,
mhm.
and they must have had some good intelligence to know when to do that. Because obviously we just done a tour in Northern Ireland, we didn't know whether to try to hit the paras or hit us, but either way, it didn't make any difference. But the two para lads went in as the IRA guys were planting the bombs
Yeah.
and challenged them. Right, the IRA guys had weapons. They pointed their weapons at the paras. The paras pointed their weapons at the IRA guys. The IRA guys thankfully ran off,
Yes.
and the paras got all the lads from my regiment out of the accommodation onto the parade ground,
Right.
and the bombs went off and nobody was injured. But those accommodation blocks were completely destroyed. So you're
Really?
talking two four-story accommodation blocks with 120 men in it. The casualties with it would have been, you'd have been picking up bits of body for a year. I mean, that again, margin of error, and whether it's God intervening or whatever, but that was so close to being an absolute massacre. It was probably the biggest hit the area had ever done.
How
And
long did you stay in the army then?
I did 7 years. I did 7 years. I basically, I was a section commander. I was weapons instructor, tactics instructor. But then I kind of maybe self sabotaged. My wife had gone back I bought a house back in Northern Ireland. So I didn't want my wife being in married quarters because it just wasn't really her thing. So I bought a house back in Northern Ireland, and I just went on the drink, to be honest with you, and pretty much destroyed my career. So it was one of those ones. I've been,
Were you on a
you know,
complete bender? Were you on a complete bender? You,
pretty much, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, to be honest with you, soldiers, they do one or two things. They either go and womanize, right, or they go and drink and get into fights, right. Well,
yeah.
I wasn't a womanizer, so I just drank and got into fights and got into scrapes and all sorts of silly things and silly antics. So it kind of, and my career was, I was on a really good career trajectory because I was fit, I was a good soldier. But again, it's just, you make decisions in life and they have an effect on you. But everything happens for a reason. Because
Well, why
if I
did you
hadn't,
do that? Why were you heading that way? Why? Because you
well,
strike me as disciplined and everything and all of
yeah,
that. You know.
I am, and I think what it was. I mean, do you know what it was? Right, I think part of it. A lot of people talk about PTSD and all this sort of thing. I don't think I ever had PTSD. Well, maybe might have had a bit, but I think with me, because of the buzz of being in Northern Ireland, right, and then I'd done all my courses and I was kind of waiting to get promoted. I was like Lance Corporal at the time, but I ended up doing stuff where I was in charge of a whole platoons and stuff, and I kind of I kind of got bored, because I was, and then I started drinking, and of course the two things don't mix. When you're very fit, you're
Yeah.
aggressive, you go out on the drink, you're going to get into scrapes, and that's what happened. I got into a few too many scrapes. Got caught for two of the scrapes I got into. One of them was an officer with an officer that never goes down well,
Oh,
attacking an officer, and that was pretty much a career-ending move for me. And I thought, well, what am I going to do now? And
well, what
so
happened?
after
Did you
7 years,
leave? You just you left, or were you thrown out?
oh, I wasn't thrown out. No, no, I left. Um, I'm not going to tell you how much, actually,
No,
but
don't.
it was
Well,
no. Well, that's for another day. But
yeah.
I left. I didn't get thrown out. I left totally legitimately. But it was again. It was a pretty crazy time, and I was young. I was only like 20. I think I was 24 when I left.
Really?
But it was like I had two lives because I had the life where I was being this crazy guy that was doing all this crazy stuff and getting into scrapes, and then I go back to Northern Ireland to be with my wife and my daughter, and I
Yeah.
was Mr. Calm and I was very respectable and all the rest of it. So it's weird the way people are, isn't it? We've all got sort of multiple sides to our character and our kind of personalities, and
Do you
yeah,
feel?
and that. And
Yeah. Do you feel like your service is appreciated? Do you feel that we value our veterans?
do you know what I mean? I I'll be honest with you, Liam, right? I think, don't get me wrong, I love being in the military, and and I was willing to die for my country. I was never scared of. I wasn't one of these guys that was like going on. I'm scared to go on patrol or anything like that. I was always up for it. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed doing all the courses. I did Brecon and skill at arms and all that stuff, Arctic warfare. So I had some great times in the military. So I don't think the military owes me anything, right? Because I just thoroughly loved it. I loved soldiering. For my personality, it was an outlet for everything that I was, right? So it fitted me like a glove. I messed up. I screwed my career up. That was on me. It wasn't on anybody else, So I don't think the military owes me a thing. I just thoroughly enjoyed the whole, the whole experience. And would I do things differently if I had it over again? Probably would. I probably would, but I don't know if I'd do a lot more time because I think if you stay in too long,
Mhm.
you get institutionalized,
Yes.
and so my military career, even though I've got such fond memories of it, it was a very small part of my life, but it's
Mm.
a part of your life that kind of informs everything you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
From
What would you have become? Would you be like a general, or what would you
no,
have?
I wouldn't have been a general. I wouldn't have. No, I mean, if I'd have stayed in, I'd have probably got to be a sergeant major. If I'd have kept my nose clean, I would have. Once you've done the courses that I'd done, once you've done Brecon, you've done skill at arms, you're pretty much made. You've got to be a bit of an idiot to screw it up, and I was that idiot. Yeah,
So
but it is what it is.
you
Yeah,
know what's bizarre about this, right? We're doing this interview. I've got all of these notes, Richard, about you,
yeah,
questions like I was going to ask, right?
yeah,
Because we only do 40 minutes on this particular thing, and we've
yeah.
already done 36. And
Oh dear.
I
I
haven't
think
asked, I haven't
we're
done
gonna,
my questions yet. So
it's going to have to be a two-parter, I think, Liam,
going
isn't
to
it?
be
Do
a
you know what I mean?
two-parter. We're going to have to do a two-parter because we want to know more about you and get over your whole life. So we've got 3 or 4 minutes
Yeah,
left. What do you
yeah.
think now? We will ask a political question here. Uh,
Mm,
Keir Starmer, he's just given away some islands. and this, that, and
Yeah.
the other. Were you concerned that he would get, about the Falklands?
Oh, listen, I'm very concerned about anything that Keir Starmer does.
Yeah,
I'm
same.
concerned about the Falklands. I'm concerned about him going to, give money away to Jamaica. I'm concerned about everything he does. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm concerned about the EU. I think we've got a traitor in the, we've got a traitor in the hen house. I mean,
right,
it's
great. Totally.
it's not good. It's not good, Liam. No, definitely not. But yeah, I think when you look at what the potential damage he could do, I mean, you could get quite depressed about it. But I think we've got some good plans
Yes.
on what we can do to neuter Keir Starmer. So I think there's plenty that we can do
Do you
to
think
fight back.
the veterans on Remembrance Day, should they turn their back on him?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think that should be politicized. That's my opinion. I get what if people do it, it's up to them. It's freedom of choice. But personally, I wouldn't do it, and I don't think many will. To be honest with you, I think they'll go, hold on, we can be political. If people want to be political, they can join a political party. But as a veteran, you're standing there with your medals on. You're remembering people that got killed in Northern Ireland or Bosnia or the Falklands or Afghan and Iraq. That's what it's about. It's not about giving him any. He's a narcissist. He didn't like. He liked the publicity of seeing people turn the back on him because he'd feel he's more of a victim again, wouldn't he? And then no doubt he'd probably start cutting army pensions or something. I mean, no, I wouldn't give him the time of day. I think there's different ways that we've got to get rid of him politically. We've got to get rid of the whole system politically, and that's a massive job. But again, I think we've got a lot of plans in place that we can do that.
So what we're going to do in part two of this, we want to know what happened to Richard after he left the army, and what
Under
your
his
whole life
file.
is. Because I think it's important because when you see you up there being the firebrand that you are on the stage, I think it helps when people know the background. I mean, I
Yeah.
did a thing with Paul Thorpe recently, and it was very interesting to know that his background and where he'd been brought up and how
Mm.
he became the person that he wanted to be. So yeah, we want to discover more about you, Richard. I'm sure you've got loads of secrets that
Yeah.
we. And one thing I do know, and it's a story I don't think we actually can tell at the moment. I do know that Richard is a fantastic driver because I've been in a car in a kind of in a getaway situation where, and I can honestly tell you, this man can drive a car.
Some people will beg to differ on that one, Liam, but I'll take that. No, we'll talk about that one because that was good fun. That was a fun day, but it's all about keeping the cool head, isn't it? But yeah, that was something else. But yeah,
Yeah.
so we're gonna do the next one now, Liam. Or what do you want to do? Do you
No,
want
no, we'll
to
do
do?
it on another day. I haven't sort of set it up, but I
Okay.
think, yeah, as soon as we've got some time, we'll set up another one. So, folks,
Yeah.
thank you for watching this. We're going to see more of Richard. We're going to go through his entire life, his viewpoints within what we can do on YouTube. And thank you very
Yeah.
much, Richard, for doing this first one.
Liam, great stuff, absolutely, and thanks for the opportunity as well. It's actually the first time I've ever done this, and like I say, I was quite sort of edgy about bearing all before the
I reckon you'll
the
love it. I
YouTube.
reckon you love it, and you'll be wanting to do it all the time, talking about yourself from now on.
Well, we're all narcissists, aren't we, Liam? Let's just get it right.
Brilliant. All right, Richard, I'll be in touch.
Right.
I'll see you very soon.
Okay, Liam. Great stuff. Cheers, mate. See you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.